Okay, we have a quorum. It is also the appointed time for the meeting. Let me call the meeting to order. Members and civil service representatives and also officials. On the 18th of November last year, this panel agreed that we should hold a public hearing on the manpower situation of the civil service and retirement age of civil servants. And this is that meeting. Altogether, there should be 38 deputations coming today, but one has said that it cannot attend. So there are altogether 37 deputations. And then there are 3 others which are not to attend the meeting but have nevertheless submitted their views. We intend to end the meeting at 1 p.m., but if there is a need, we can extend it by 15 minutes. We have many deputations today, and each will therefore be given 3 minutes. Many of you have already given us your submissions. I would propose, therefore, you should not read out your submissions because of the constraint of time. Rather, you should make use of those 3 minutes to let us know your views in a gist. I would welcome representatives of the Civil Service Bureau. I'd like to remind you also that if you have the need, you can use the earpiece and choose the language channel you desire. 0 is floor, 1 is Cantonese, 2 is English. I'd also like to mention that your submissions and also your oral representation at the meeting today are not covered or exempted by the LC Powers and Privileges Ordinance. And I hope that when you speak, please do not use a mixed code so that it may not be easy for the simultaneous interpreters. First of all, I'd like to call upon Mr. Chung, Hong Kong Civil Servants General Union Vice Chairman, to speak. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, and members and also SCS. On behalf of the Hong Kong Civil Service General Union, I have been a representative for 10 years, and I have spoken here for 6-7 times with regard to the establishment of the civil service as well as the non-civil service contract work and also intermediaries, etc. We emphasize that we should preserve the integrity of the civil service. After the reunification, there was so-called new thinking, and in 1999 there was a civil service reform. The aim is to trim down the civil service. However, the administration must provide basic service, and but then without forward-looking vision, you have not made preparation for long-term development in the civil service. Therefore, a lot of problems have arisen. Now, there is huge lack of manpower in the civil service, and we have excessive workloads. However, some of the work cannot be outsourced because of the nature of work. The monitoring role rests with the CSB, but then with a lot of wrong policies having been adopted, civil service morale is at a low ebb. We have frozen employment of civil servants for 10 years, and in most government departments, there is this terrible problem of a big gap and a succession problem. And as you know, you have legislated for reduction of salary, and there is a lack of medical and dental service. And civil servants always ask for premature retirement, so the succession problem has become even worse. I think you should take another look at the establishment of the civil service. And right now, the civil service team is made up of different types of workers. I believe you should look at establishing a comprehensive team again. In 2010, when there was the population policy consultation, we already said that there was a trend of aging of the population, and it could be seen that later on there would be a lack of the workforce. And manpower resources are the most precious resources. And in 2012, our union already issued a submission to the administration to propose to enhance the age of retirement of civil servants to 65. But then, unfortunately, we were told that there was not such a plan. Now, we are in 2014. You have wasted 2 years already. And after having paternity leave and the 5-day work week, the administration has taken the lead, and it has acted as an example for the private market. In Hong Kong, there is no statutory retirement age, and usually people follow the civil service retirement age of 60. That's the convention. If the administration can take the lead to lengthen the retirement age, I think that will be good. Next, Correctional Services Officers Association, Mr. Chang Yok Leung, Chairman. Thank you. Let me talk about the situation in the civil service. There is a retirement wave in the entire CSD. There are rules that cannot be applicable anymore. There is a big wastage of manpower, and in the next 5 years there would be 1,800 people leaving, or 30% of the uniformed branch. We are recruiting, but because of the present system and the ordinance, we have told the CSB this many times, but then there is no flexible arrangement. Say, for example, right now, I like to get a correctional services assistant 2. I will have to wait 12 months before that person can assume the job, and it takes 18 months for an inspector to be recruited. It is all right when people retire at the designated age, but then there is a peak of retirement, and therefore our manpower is in a tight situation. And also, we can only mount one recruitment exercise every year. Therefore, we are faced with an excessive workload indeed. Also, from some indicators, we can see that there is a lack of manpower because of the 5-day work week. As you can see, we can only implement the 5-day work week at a truncated percentage, and many CSD officers can only dream about having a 5-day work week. So I hope you will relax the conditioned hours requirement. As for retirement age, we have conducted an opinion survey. 60% of our officers said yes, and 40% said no. Let me see. But then our officers would like to say that you should clarify the situation as soon as possible so people can make plans for their future. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Next, Civil Servants and Subsidized Organizations Committee, the Federation of Hong Kong and Kowloon Labor Unions, convener Mr. Tang Tak Ho. Good morning, Chairman and members. I am the convener of the Civil Servants and Subsidized Organizations Committee. We are very concerned about this issue, and after considering members' views, we support the lengthening of the retirement age. We have a growing population, and we need to provide more service to the public. Many people are still quite able to work after 60. According to the CNS, we can see that there will be a growing population of people over 60. That goes to show that they can still work, and the present retirement scheme is that discipline services 55 years old, and the civilian side 60 years. Many people can really still work after retirement, but then if you mandate that retirement age, you are wasting the knowledge and experience of civil servants. But if you lengthen the retirement age, these people will be able to pass on their experience and skills to newcomers. And it is a big an important topic that you should lengthen the retirement age to keep the civil service stable. There will be about 6,000 retirement every year from now on, and there were a few strikes by civil servants to show that the huge lack of manpower is a problem. When the retirement peak comes along, the situation will be worse. We understand that the administration will listen to different views, and some people say that by lengthening the retirement age, people's promotion will be affected. I think the administration should lessen the worries of civil servants. We propose that retirement age should not be mandated, but rather made flexible. We can have 3 short-term measures. First of all, to have re-employment, and retired civil servants can be re-employed on contract, so you do not have to spend so much on training. You can preserve their experience, and you can also preserve the high-quality service of the civil servants. And also, you should mandate a extension of 90 days of service. We think civil servants can apply to work for another 90 days. so they can complete what they have in hand and also to pass their work on to somebody else. And also we should state the retirement age to be 65 to comply with the MPF disbursement arrangement. I think you should now mount recruitment exercises, but then that will take time, and lengthening the retirement age will be the best way forward for you to gauge the work ability of civil servants. Now we want to provide high quality service to the public. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Hong Kong SAR Government Employees General Unions. Mr. Kong Ming Chung, the chairperson. Thank you, Chairman. The union did an opinion survey about retirement age, and 70% of interviewees said yes. There are over 7 million people in Hong Kong, and then the transient population is about 1 million. Such big figures put a high demand on public service. But then there is a lack of civil service manpower. That is something that should not be debated anymore. In the last year, we saw some civil service strikes, and that goes to show that there is a serious lack of manpower in the civil service. In the next 10 years, we'll see the peak of retirement. About 5,600 to 7,000 civil servants will be retiring every year, and you're going to lose this batch of very experienced civil servants, and the remaining ones will face even higher work pressure. We understand you cannot make up the shortfall overnight. Lengthening the retirement age would be the quickest way and the most effective way to tackle the manpower situation. As for the age of retirement, we'd like to propose that with regard to new recruits, we believe it can be set statutorily at 65. As for incumbents, you can allow them to work for another 5 years at most. You can look at 1987, the new pension scheme. So incumbents can have the choice as to whether they want to work longer. The administration cannot just brush aside the issue. Apart from retiring later, in the short term, you can do the following to tackle the shortage of manpower situation. In the short term, you should revive the policy of extension of 90 days. And in the medium term, you can have re-employment of retired civil servants. You had this two-tin rule about baby formula. The Customs and Excise Department had to recruit manpower, and re-employment was the solution. We understand that in putting backward the retirement age, you have to look at a few factors and you have to listen to different voices. I'm sure there are people who object. Some of them think that this will affect promotion, and people have to wait longer for promotion. And the administration has the responsibility to draw up a mechanism to relieve the worries of civil servants. Civil servants can work longer so that they comply with what the population policy consultation proposes, and that is to release manpower into the labor market. And in fact, these are experienced people, and in the long term, there will be a lot of help done to the market. The government and civil servants are partners. You should listen to our voices. I hope you will really consider our voices so we have a win-win situation.
Thank you, Mr. Kong. We now have Mr. Yip from the Union of Hong Kong Post Office Employees. Now, I represent 1,700 members, 200 of whom are non-civil servants. Now, we have discussed the issue and came to a conclusion. Now, we have an aging population, a low birth rate, and after 1997, the number of civil servants has been trimmed. And using our exercise as an example, we have civil servants 5,000, but 2,000 are non-civil servants, a percentage of 34%. Now, of course, this is related to our trading fund arrangement, but this is also similar in other departments. The aim is to reduce resources, but you are now creating this shortage yourself. And if you create or hire too many non-civil servants, you are creating shortage and not really treating your employees well, creating a low morale. and you will have friction between the two parties, the two groups of civil servants. So the number of posts allowed for people to be promoted is also reduced as a result. So we have the following suggestions. Now, apart from seasonal fluctuations, the government should stop hiring non-civil servants. And number two, to turn those performing well into civil servants. Now, in our situation, we see a polarized situation, but in fact, we're suggesting that the older members can have their retirement age extended from 55 to 57. And 1 year beforehand, they should notify the department head to see if there are enough people and whether they would be stopping people from getting promoted. Thank you. We now have the Hong Kong Immigration Department Staff Association, Mr. Wong Tao. Now, I would like to say that we have a severe shortage of manpower in our immigration department, and we had only 1% increase, but our workload has increased a lot. Those coming into Hong Kong exceed tens of millions per year. So the 1% increase in manpower is not enough. Now, apart from these border control work, we have other work to do, and we find ourselves unable to cope. So we must have manpower corresponding to our increased workload. Now, Hong Kong is a tourist city, and you have people queuing for hours before coming to Hong Kong, and this is not a good thing to see. And our staff at the front line are being scolded and treated rather roughly. And we can only bear this situation. And sometimes you have to refer cases and handle emergencies on the scene. So all of us are tired and have low morale, and new staff members do not have a sense of belonging, and they will quit rather easily because we need experienced staff. But this is not the case at the moment. Now, I think on the recruitment side, very often we are lagging behind. Now, we have a whole year's figure before we can be allowed to hire in the coming year. But this is not a timely arrangement. Now, I think the government should modify the recruitment exercise so that our workload can be alleviated. Thank you. We now have Hong Kong Federation of Civil Service Unions. I won't be able to say all I want to say in 3 hours, not to mention 3 minutes. Now, we have two issues here, and we do have our views on lengthening the number of years of service. Now, I hope the government will implement this ASAP to extend the retirement age to 65. Now, if you look around the world, in Europe, Asia, and so on, the retirement age has been extended, all except Hong Kong. Main reason why we are asking for this is, as you can see, in the past decade or so, we had zero growth in the government, and we have a very severe shortage of manpower. Staff have to accumulate experience before they can actually contribute. Now, so in this situation, by lengthening the retirement age, this is a better arrangement. Now, we have rather strong feelings among our staff members. Many of us at the age of 60 are very strong and able, and because they married late and the children are only in secondary school, and if they are earning, let's say, $20,000, if they retire, they can only get 1/3 in terms of pension, and this will not be enough to support their family. And how can we help them? This will also be a social burden. They will have to apply for CSSA. And do you want to see retired civil servants having to rely on CSSA? So we have strong response from the staff members. I brought this up many years ago, but unfortunately, the issue was not responded to. So every time when we had policy address, we repeatedly brought up this issue to the CE. But unfortunately, it's until today that the issue is being reconsidered. Now, I hope the government can really seriously consider this. Now, under the contract system, they should be kept at a minimum level. 5% will be too much. And if you look at the government departments, there are many such cases. Now, I hope the government will look at the issue very, very carefully. Thank you. We now have the Hong Kong Leisure Services Staff General Union, Mr. Cheung Siu Wing. Now, many of us have said that there's a shortage of manpower, and I would like to describe the situation of a mix of talent. Now, there were 2 cases of trees falling down, resulting in injuries. That is because the staff responsible were not really in those areas. They were not experts in those areas. And similarly, you have a poorly maintained soccer pitch, and also a situation in some of our swimming pools. Now, so we had our meetings, and I'm sure if you have been to our swimming pools, you will know that there are cases where we really have to be careful, and some have said that there are very few incidents. But you know that this figure must be kept very, very low, and you cannot use this as a yardstick, using security guards instead of lifeguards. Well, this is not acceptable. I've also received a call, and he wants to examine trees, to inspect trees, and took a picture and asked me, Mr. Cheung, what sort of tree is it? Now, how come you contract out this service instead of using civil servants? In fact, civil servants are a core pillar of our society. Now, you know, all of you here are civil servants here. This core of pillar is being asked to resign and not allowed to contribute to society. Now, in one seminar recently, and it has been said by some of the colleagues here, if you were to draw a line, now, those who came in 1998, when they reach retirement age, they would get about $200,000, and then their pension about $2,000 per month. Now, how can they maintain a living? So now, combining all my views, I'm calling upon the government to very seriously look at our needs, our operational needs, to review our overall structure. Now, we need to maintain the trees. We have more than 1 million such trees, but we only have several thousand people. How can we look after so many trees? Now, thank you, Mr. Cheung. We now have the Hong Kong Fire Services Department. Staffs General Association, Mr. Nip. On the manpower situation, now, regarding the terms of service of our staff, if this is to be comparable to the private market, that would be good, but otherwise we won't be able to compete. Now, so if you look at the recruitment terms for civil servants, their holidays and other welfare, you want to make sure that this is attractive as a whole and to retain them. Now, the firemen at the moment have to deal with fire prevention and other inspection, handling complaints, as well as attend training and special skills training. Now, all these mean that the fire services require a lot of manpower. So we are asking the government to have more manpower to replace our, or to help to boost our numbers, because needs are changing, population is growing, and risks are increasing. So society is asking for a bigger demand for our services, and our frontline staff, their burden is heavier and their pressure is heavier. We are asking the government to look at our manpower calculation all over again so that society's needs can be met. Now, on extending the retirement age, our Staff General Association collected questionnaires from our staff members, and the majority welcome this move. Now, for the details and the other employment terms and those unpensionable establishment, they have different views. Now, whether they can choose when to retire, now these are details that would need to be consulted, and a suitable option should be given to staff of different ranks to discuss and to exchange their views. That's all from me. Thank you, Mr. Nip. We now have the Association of Customs and Excise Service Officers, Mr. Chan Cho. Now, we have vacancies over a long period of time for inspector grades reach up to 15%. This is undesirable. And because we have a lot of acting posts, and those under acting situations feel the stress. And what we feel disappointed is that we have not been properly consulted whether the retirement age should be extended. And because of a lack of manpower, our discipline services, they cannot enjoy a 5-day week. Now, the Customs Excise Department, now after the handover, now more than 10 years, they are not promoted from within our ranks.
Even if the management and staff are doing their best to crack down on crimes, but since we do not have reasonable support, we have worked to the last ounce of our ability. Let me share with you recent violations of the law. First of all, with regard to organized crimes, there is a big surge, and at the airport and also at other boundary points, there is a surge of drug problems, and also those commodities that should have duty paid on them. There are also a lot of these cases, and also the import and export of live animals that has surged as well. And these cases are now handled by us, even if they have to be referred to other law enforcement agencies. And we are like camels in a desert. We don't have food, we don't have water, and yet the administration is asking us to do more, and that is about the 2-tin rule for the export of baby formula. You can see that we have worked flat out in order to keep order and at the boundary points and also in the North District. You can all see what they are doing. We have to do so much investigation, and there are other duties as well, so there is no room for us to take on more. What is disappointing is that the administration is not putting an end to such agent services that we are executing, but more work is dumped on us. As for retirement, our stance is, first of all, the choice should remain with employees. Our staff should be able to choose whether they would like to work beyond retirement age. And number two, this should not affect incumbent civil servants, whether or not they are on pensionable terms. And number three, we hope there will be new retirement options for our consideration in the near future, so staff can make a choice. Thank you, Mr. Chan. Next, Immigration Service Officers Association, Mr. Isaac Shui, the chairman. Thank you, Chairman, and I thank so many members of LegCo who are listening to us. I think the manpower situation is affected by previous measures like EPP, shrinking the civil service establishment, performance pledges, and also the handling of inquiries, complaints, and applications, etc. At the Immigration Department, we have been directly affected by these policies. If you ask members here whether you have used our services, I'm sure each and every one here should have used our services at least once. You have been born, you have got married, and you might have a domestic helper, so you need to use our services. If I would ask you to give us a mark, 100 being the full mark and 60 being the pass mark, what is the mark you would give us vis-a-vis our effectiveness of service? We provide service to Hong Kong people and which are closely related to their daily lives. As I said, every person in Hong Kong would have at least used our service once. At the control points, we also have to deal with travelers. In 2003, for the first 10 months, people coming in and out of Hong Kong stood at 89 million. And if I would count up to December, the number would reach 100 million. So you can imagine how much pressure we are under. At the boundary checkpoints, we need also to tackle the mainland mothers coming into Hong Kong to give birth, because now there is a zero quota for them. We also have to help the SARG tackle cross-boundary students and also parallel goods traders. In the annex to the paper, we have shown the work pressure of officers with regard to visa, passport issue, and even marriage registration. We face pressure on all fronts. And recently there are a few thousand cases which have to do with the application for asylum because of torture problems. These have to do with human rights issues and other issues, and we need to apply professional expertise to these cases. On behalf of 4 workers' unions in the department, I hope members here will fight for manpower for us by increasing 100 officers and 300 to 400 rank and file workers. Please help us. Thank you, Mr. Ai. Next, Government Model Scale 1 Staff General Union, Mr. Choi Yet Keung, Committee Member. Thank you, Chairman. We have consulted our members and our views are as follows. With regard to manpower arrangement, we have a serious shortage of workmen too. This is mainly because only the FEHD can recruit workmen too. Other departments can only have internal redeployment. Therefore, the situation is serious, and the FEHD is a disaster area. Therefore, only when people leave the service can recruitment take place. So there is a time gap when vacancies are not filled. We think we should lift the freeze for other departments, so they can also have open recruitment. As for retirement age, after consulting our members, most of them would like to extend the age as long as it is not mandated. They will not object if they have a choice. Now people live more healthily. They also get married later, and even when you reach the age of 60, their children might still be in primary or secondary school. So if you ask them to retire, they might be on CSSA. And some grades object, saying that it will have an impact on promotion. But for Mod 1, this will not happen. So even if other grades find this a problem, you should allow Mod 1 to proceed. This is mentioned in para 11 of the background paper by LegCo. Let me also reiterate that people are living more healthily, and I believe there will be an extension of retirement age by 5 years in every 20 to 30 years from now on. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chang Chi-Hwa from the Staff Union of FEHD, the chairman. Thank you. I have 2 points which might be quite similar to what Mr. Choi said. All departments lack workmen too, but recruitment is done only internally. And if people are deployed as workmen too, then those departments would lack manpower on other fronts. Some people are promoted also, some have retired, and there is always a gap in the succession of such grades. If that's the case, why don't you allow the departments to mount open recruitment? Second point, we have asked many workmen in the districts. They all agree that the retirement age should be extended. Even the new recruits say that what will happen after their retirement age? They have to wait 5 years before they have MPF. And some of the old hands say they have worked for 20-odd years and they have to retire at 60, and given the present living standard, they would not be able to sustain themselves because they will neither be here nor there. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Next, Hong Kong Immigration Department, Rank and File General Union, Mr. Hui Chi Hong, the chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I'm responsible for counter work. I will concentrate on the boundary checkpoints. We clear travelers. If you look at the districts, all people who have come into Hong Kong would have gone through clearance procedures. You will see also a lot of mainlanders and other people traveling in parallel goods. Tourist numbers are shooting up, but we do not have the right manpower to meet demand. Let me tell you what happens at boundary checkpoints. We have quite large halls, but then they're always flooded with travelers. And some of them fainted while they waited, and some more agitated ones would involve themselves in fight. And some of them actually used a lighter to burn the plastic or nylon straps that we use. And also when there is the Hong Kong Brands and Products Expo, when there is a Mid-Autumn Festival, etc., more people will flood into Hong Kong. Some children sweat all over when they wait in the queue. As for our staff, during the meal break, there would be more people in the common room than in the canteen. This is because they are so tired, they are so much in fatigue, they rather take a break instead of eating. And you may say there are e-channels to process the tourists, but then e-channels cannot replace human beings, such as some tourists may carry a baby in their arms. And we have to watch this and monitor this with human presence. And also we have to detect non-local pregnant women. And not too long ago, a child went missing, and we need to maintain our human presence in order to try to find this child. So I hope there will be more people given to the Immigration Department to meet our increasing workload. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hui. Next, Government Discipline Services General Union, Mr. Lam Kwok Ho, Chairman. Good morning, Chairman. In 2012, we already explored into the issue. We'd like to have staged extension of the retirement age. What we mean is we should not mandate 55 or 65 to be the year of retirement. I hope we can adopt an open attitude for everybody to look into the issue, and also how we can implement the phased plan. I hope the administration can let us know. In the questionnaire that we did, all of us said that there should be a free choice, and for discipline services, people should be able to choose whether they want to leave at 55. This is the most important point for us. All over the world, people are setting the retirement age at like 60, 62. And our country has set it at 62. This is because countries and cities are looking at their own needs, and so they would extend the retirement age to a certain age, whether it be 62 or 65 or even 70 for Hong Kong. I think we can look into that further. As for a lack of manpower, our society is developing, and we have heard other colleagues say that you need to complement development with manpower. If you don't do that, the public will stand to lose. So we agree that the administration should take up the responsibility to review the manpower situation. As for short-term posts, you have this policy of short-term contracts, but in fact, in the long term, we should not just look at present needs. You really have to expand the establishment. You cannot bury your head in the sand and just tackle near problems. The Bureau should do something to tackle this problem of short-term posts. And also, you have to be mindful about the wastage of precious manpower. You should start the review now, or else if you don't do it, no matter how many people you can recruit, that would be a waste of your effort.
Thank you. We now have the Government Frontline Employees Union. It's Mr. Wong. He's not here yet, so we move on to the Hawker Control Team Staff Branch. Mr. Wong. Now, we want to have a big market but a small government, so from the year 2000, efficiency is to be boosted, and the voluntary retirement scheme resulting in a drop in the number of civil servants. Now, the directorates wanted to achieve this aim, then reduce the number of posts and without considering the results, and also contract out posts to replace the work done by the civil servants. And the Hawker Control Team and the Mod 1 staff, the number has been trimmed significantly. And there has been a freeze for 10 years. And this applies even to the contract staff. And because of the retirement wave, we now have a very severe shortage of manpower. The Hawker Control Team is not does not have enough manpower. And our establishment has to deal with really complicated issues, complaints, hygiene on the streets, and so on. And these are issues that you are also concerned about, and you have shops extending their shop fronts onto the pavements, and many such issues. And you will have more work than manpower, and many of our staff have to give up what they are doing at the moment and attend to other problems that arise on the scene. And these hawker control team members cannot fully or promptly respond to the public's complaints. So we are asking the government to increase our manpower so that we can react and respond to public needs in a more timely fashion. Now, on extending retirement age, we are in favor of this, to have an extension of the staff members' retirement age on a flexible basis, and to retain their benefits and welfare. The so-called 3+3 arrangement should have their staff members extended to at least 65. Now we have Mr. Chan from the Discipline Services Consultative Council. Mr. Zip, members, good morning. Now we represent 5 disciplinary services. Now on manpower problem, there are 2 points. First of all, we are losing talents. Now under our arrangement, you have to have good remuneration to retain the talents so that they provide efficient service. But unfortunately, since the new scheme was in place, all our benefits were not as good as before. You have medical services and so on. These are not favorable. And because of the changes in society, our work becomes more complicated and public demand increases, and we have to handle a wider range of work. So this mitigates again against the retaining of manpower. Now, because of our special duties, new staff have to be trained for a long time. And then if you have people retiring, and then you have to advertise, and then to recruit, and then to train. So it takes a long time for a post to be filled, something like 12 to 24 months. So this creates a lot of pressure on our frontline staff. Now, in face of these retirement, our severe shortage of manpower becomes even more so. Now, on retirement age, we have an open mind on this issue, especially on those on the civil service pension, and they have to retire by their 50s, but then they could live up to their 80s or even 90s. So they work for 20, 30 years, but then this have to support their 30 years of retirement. This is not possible. So on the government's pension, this will not be enough to support their last 2 or 3 decades. They would have to continue working instead of having a worry-free retirement. Now, we have to extend the retirement, but the staff members should have a choice depending on their health and personal wish. So you should consult staff members ASAP and to extend the 90-day arrangement. Now, we now have the Hong Kong Correctional Services General Union, Mr. Lee. Now we can look at the issue on 3 areas, whether you are on the old scheme or new scheme. the retirement is determined on a defined benefit basis or defined contribution, and they can calculate their highest amount of probation payment. And then they have to rely on their pension, and if they extend the retirement age, it will not really help them very much financially, but then their experience will benefit society. And those who are 55 and they only have defined contribution, in other words, only 18% of their contribution to be inserted into their MPF, and they have their accrued benefits calculated in this way. And compared to the white-collar workers, they have the 55 to 59 years old experience, and they have the 25% accrued benefits. But the disciplinary services, they have to worry about the 5 years, 55 and 59, and they cannot spend all their retirement benefits. And so for 55, they are not retiring, they are losing their job, the 2.5% additional payment, but then this is like only 10 months salary, but then they have lost their right to work for another 5 years. If you look at the civil service, you should look at them all together. You have to protect them so that they can have the retirement right at the right age. Now, of course, individual options would affect different members, so we are proposing an extension of retirement age in phases. In phases, meaning that every now and then, you, for 2015, and then 2025, then for each 10-year phase, the retirement age can be extended. And there is room for discussion here. Now, the major benefit is that the negative impact can be reduced, and to ensure that all disciplinary services staff can be protected. And details are in our submission. Now, for the ICAC staff, their retirement age is 60. Now, why is that the case? That's all from me. Thank you. We now have the Hong Kong Immigration Assistance Union. Now, to respond to the previous speaker, for January to October 2013, 80 plus million. But in fact, another figure is that altogether, in and out of Hong Kong, is the number of people being handled is 230 million, but handled only by a small number of frontline staff. Now, we have people who are highly educated, and you want to provide good service to the public. You can imagine the stress that the frontline staff are facing. Now, the shortage of manpower coupled with seasonal peak flow of people results in very low morale, and there may be friction or rough handling at the borders. Some were actually beaten, and this morale goes even lower. Now, on the launching of these schemes, you have to consider the ability to do reception work. Now, please consider the border staff reception ability, the software, meaning the people there, the hardware, meaning the location, the facilities, whether there is traffic connection, and so on, a whole basket of things. So, to provide quality service, I hope the SAR government can look at our requests, which are very important. Now, on retirement age, we have an open mind. We know that in a short while there will be many people retiring. So there should be a corresponding solution. Now, we hope that the Civil Service Bureau can let us have the report as soon as possible so that together we can work out a good solution to face this peak retirement wave. Thank you. We now have Mr. Tam from the Labour Party. We fully support the association's request for increasing manpower and delaying retirement age. We have received many such friends from the civil servants, and we have the knowledge that the staff manpower at the moment are not able to cope with the workload. Now, you have heard about the increased immigrants, the two-tin arrangement, traffic allowances, and so on. All these will have a lot of drain on the government manpower. But then the number of staff is dropping. From the year 2000 onwards, the ratio between civil servants vis-a-vis the population is dropping. But if you look at the mobile or transient population, it's actually increasing. In other words, there's a severe shortage in the government manpower. So we are of the view that there should be an increase in manpower as well as extending the retirement age in order to solve the problem. Now, on the other hand, in the consultation paper released recently on the population survey, now you will see that the working population is actually dropping very soon. Now, in the private market, they're talking about importing labor. Okay, some people object to this, but what about within the civil servants? Now, many of our colleagues here that next year more than 5,000 civil servants will be retiring. So the shortage situation is getting worse. So I hope the government can very seriously look at our proposals to extend the retirement age. Thirdly, we have also heard from unions because of the revamp starting from the year 2000, voluntary retirement scheme and so on. Many of them have actually left the civil service. Now, and we have a whole range of a whole number of years of shortage, a missing generation, as it were. And we have to face the public in our work. And of course, the public demand and expectation is increasing. So we need to preserve our expertise, and delaying the retirement age is very important because the accumulated experience can be put to good use.
Next, Hong Kong Customs Officers Union, Mr. Chan Ming, the chairman. Thank you. I represent 3 grades of frontline staff at CNE. Let me give you some figures. Yesterday, the figures given to us by the department are that we lack 24% at chief officer grade. Senior, we are down by 12%. And at the officer grade, a lack of 9%. So altogether, there is a shortage of 10% overall speaking. These are very conservative figures. But then at boundary checkpoints, there is a shortage of 20% because some people have been redeployed to do new tasks like cross-boundary students and also the two-tin rule of baby formula. But we have not got enough resources to meet the workload. So we have to re-employ retired officers to and force these laws. But at the same time, people in the establishment are also redeployed to do prosecution and random checking. We have new tasks placed on us, but we have a lack of resources, so the daily operation of the department has been seriously affected. As you have heard, we have over 200 million people going in and out of Hong Kong. The CNE has to tackle people as well as goods. We don't check 100%, but if there is a lack of manpower, we can check even less. If the checking rate is on the low side, there will be illegal commodities coming into Hong Kong like contraband, cigarette and drugs and smuggled goods. And it will be more difficult for us to enforce the law. I hope the administration will look at this and inject manpower into CNE. And also later on, if you give us new tasks, you have to give us the resources. Recently, you say we need a million for tackling cross-boundary students, and 600,000 of that has to come from the CNE. I wonder why you don't give us the entire amount, but you ask us to squeeze out $600,000 from our internal resources. I find that rather strange. As for retirement age, frontliners have an open mind. It should be voluntary. And we hope the options can be announced soon so we can get prepared. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Liberal Party, Mr. Peter Siu. There is an aging problem in Hong Kong. Also, there is a lack of manpower in the market. The unemployment rate is just 3%, meaning it is almost full employment. But even so, in different trades and jobs, people are facing a shortage of manpower, like in the construction sector. To tackle these problems, now is that an important thing for Hong Kong people? The administration said in a report that the dependency ratio for elderly is 3:1, but in 20-30 years, the ratio would be 1.3:1. If we don't solve the problem, what will happen? In the last 10 odd years in Japan, there is a recession, and that is because they face the same problem. We need to tackle a lack of manpower in the workforce. You can do it in 3 ways. 1, birth rate. 2, importation of labor. 3, extending the retirement age. In terms of birth rate, the administration is encouraging people to have babies, but given the present economic situation, I don't think the situation will improve. As for importation of labor, I think Hong Kong should welcome people with expertise, and in different trades, there should be an appropriate level of people imported into Hong Kong. But as to the retirement age, I think we can do it right away. In private companies, there is no particular retirement age, but in the civil service, it is usually 60 and 55 for discipline services. I believe such people are still in good health, and even after retirement, they might take up other jobs. In October, the Liberal Party did a survey. Apart from those who had no views, over 70% of people agreed that the retirement age for civil servants can be extended. And then 70 to 80% said it should be between 60 to 65. The civil servants have expertise and knowledge. If they can retire later, they can help the development of Hong Kong. And the Hong Kong society as a whole will follow that practice. The private sector would also extend the retirement age, so we can immediately tackle the labor problem and also the dependency ratio problem. If we can allow civil servants to retire in a flexible manner, then, well, of course, you have to respect the spirit of the contracts. Now, if some civil servants would like to retire at 55, then we should respect them. But with their agreement, they can work for a few more years. Thank you, Mr. Siu. Hong Kong Fire Services Officers Association, Mr. McCam Fai. Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to tell you what fire services officers do. In our daily work, we have to arrive at the scene within a very short time to make decisions that have everything to do with life saving. It has been difficult for us to recruit because you need to have a lot of physical attributes. You cannot be short-sighted, and you also have a great physique. So it's difficult to recruit, and then you need a lot of experience in making the right judgment at the scene. Yet we don't have any reserve manpower for doing training. And we are talking about saving lives. People need experience, they need training, and that has to be accumulated over time. I started to be trained when I took up the post until now. In the last 30 years, training resources have not been increased, but we have increased fire stations from 40 to 80 odd. So this is a grave problem. This can be likened to ambulances on the road, but they all break down. If there is no training resources for fire service officers, that is what is going to happen. We are now operating a 5-star hotel, meeting 6-star demands by using a manpower contingent for a Hong Kong-style cafeteria. So you understand better if I use this analogy. As for retirement age, generally there is agreement, but in terms of our physical fitness, it might be difficult for our staff. But we have looked at the most stringent fitness tests in government. In the past 10 years, senior officers have all been able to meet the target. So it shows that we don't have a great problem, even if the retirement age is extended. We believe we are still fit after 55, especially command and rescue. It is experience that really counts. Physical fitness is not the biggest issue. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mack. Hong Kong FEHD Staff Rights Union, Ms. Lee Mei Siu, the chairperson. From the submission, you can see this table. There was a voluntary departure scheme, and 1/3 of our manpower has gone. But the number of complaints that we have processed has shot up by 30 to 40,000, counting from 2005, and we have a lack of 72 persons in our establishment. If we handle a complaint by using 3 hours, which is already very quick, yet we have increased our working hours by 90,000 to 100,000 already every year. And you can see our manpower has not increased, and yet the work demand has shot up. So there is serious shortage of manpower. You will see that our work shifts have been affected, and therefore the quality of service has been affected as well. And also the system has been changed so that there is a big gap with regard to the transfer of experience. Health inspectors only work for 2 years in a certain post, and the quality of service is affected. And as I said, there is a succession gap. There is a high wastage rate. There is another table in our submission telling you that 700 people have left in 10 years. These are old hands. They are experienced. And the new recruits are younger than us by 20 years. So there is a big gap in terms of experience transfer and skills transfer, and therefore quality of service is affected. We do prosecution and we have a big workload. So new recruits are also leaving. The wastage rate is 23.2%. They don't want to stay. They don't want to be an FEHD officer. Now, because of the excessive workload, our health and morale are affected. Recently, at Warhap Shack, the cremators told me that they were forced to work longer hours, and they said that if they leave work at 12 midnight, there is no transport, and there is no transport arranged for them, and they said they could not be sure to handle the ashes in a proper manner. As for the retirement age, we hope there will be flexibility in the department, so people can work half-time if they reach the age of 60 until they are 65. Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next, Hong Kong Professional Teachers Union, Mr. Shi, Vice President. Thank you, Chairman. The establishment of as secondary and primary teachers is pegged to the number of classes. If we can have a better teacher-to-class ratio, that will be the best way to respond to the demands of the teachers. We have got the new secondary school curriculum, and now we have a new establishment, and that came into place in 2012-2013. This is for secondary schools. But the teacher-class ratio has not been reviewed since 1994 for primary schools. Society has developed fast in the last 20-30 years, and there have been so many reforms. However, schools were only given short-term funding to redeploy manpower. They were not in a position to do long-term manpower planning, and we have a high wastage and also a succession gap. What's worse, the Education Bureau would only ask you to exchange posts instead of allowing you to do recruitment for new manpower. This is not helping the situation. It dampens the teachers' morale, and it is affecting the quality of education. The Education Bureau would allow you to have short contracts, long contracts, and allow you to have supply teachers. Instead of expanding the establishment, it is creating a false phenomenon of the right workload for teachers. But we think this is wrong. You should only look at the teacher-class ratio. The Bureau is now making double standards, and it is selectively using these standards as it likes. How can civil servant teachers work with dedication and one heart and one mind in order to provide quality education when it faces such a policy bureau? Therefore, we hope you will regularly review the situation and increase the teacher-class ratio.
Thank you, Mrs. Xu. We now have the Hong Kong Fire Services Control Staffs Union, Mr. Tam. Now, our Control Staffs Union is of the view that even with the best computers, you need very good operators, but without enough people, you cannot really perform well. And that applies to the whole team. And this is the problem facing us. We are around-the-clock service. Whenever we report received of injured or fired, then we have to send people out to help. And we have to help and handle other fire hazards. And we have to be sending out well-equipped mobile control centers. And we also help to protect the airport. Now we have 24 team arrangement, and since our implementation in 2005, we have to handle close to 0.6 or 0.7 million such cases, and our population has grown by 300,000. And of course, our public expectation is increasing, and then people who got lost are also helped by us, and we are helping more and more people. And we have increased both our quantity of our work and quality of our work, but the situation is that we have a shortage of manpower, and we have to cover a very, very wide area, but only handled by 4 staff members. We're covering 70% of the total area of Hong Kong, and they are really under a lot of stress, and we have to train them and to increase manpower. Now, on the retirement age issue, we are open-minded. Now, some have to work on the front line, and some have to work in the command centers, and they have to make decisions very quickly. So, extending their retirement age is quite possible, but it has to be flexible. Now, pension and retirement, they are all needed, and some can only get their retirement benefits at the age of 65, and otherwise they can only get their own part of contribution. And this will mean that the livelihood is to be affected, and they cannot find similar jobs in the private market. So it will create a difficult situation. So extending the retirement age is a good thing to do for these people, and they should be given the option and flexibility to do so. Thank you. We now have the Police Force Council, the staff side. We have Mr. Chan. Yes, now, good morning. We represent our superintendents, inspectors, overseas inspectors, as well as the rank and file, and representing more than 90% of our staff members. Now, on retirement age, we have submitted a written submission to LegCo. Now, the overseas inspectors and the rank and file, they have also provided written submissions individually, and I will not repeat them. Now, I would like to say that we respect individual choices, and as far as they are fit, and when they reach 55, they can choose to remain until 60 or even beyond. And we would like to have a flexible plan. In fact, looking in the future 10 years, we will face a retirement wave, and our work will be affected inevitably. Now, the best way is to extend the retirement age. We are of the view that retiring at 55 is too early, and the retirement benefits are not enough to maintain the present lifestyle, and many of us will have to work to support themselves, and we have lost a lot of experienced staff, and we have to train, and this requires a lot of resources. So in the last few years, a lot of changes have taken place, and the peak retirement wave would come around 2019. Now, we have solicited views from our staff last March and April, and we have received more than 9,700 questionnaires, and 73% are of the view that they would like to work until 60, and only 26% said no. Now, we are supporting a view of flexible extension of retirement age. So retiring at 55 is no longer suitable for the police. It should be extended to 60 and ultimately to 65. The police should be allowed to be re-employed after the age of 55 on a voluntary basis. And extending the retirement age is a necessity so that we can continue to serve Hong Kong. We now have the Hong Kong Chinese Civil Servants Association and Madam Lee. Now, our Chinese Civil Servants Association raised last year that we have been facing a shortage of manpower in the last 20 years. And okay, we have now started to recruit, but it's hardly enough. We have to cope with new services, but the shortage situation still remains, and in fact is aggravated. Now, some departments have huge backlogs, and the customs and excise officials have talked about the two-tin arrangement, and all these new measures result in more severe shortage of manpower. And we have increased cases of CSSA in a very short period of time, and then we also had recent cases of people contracting diseases. Now, because of the shortage of time, I'm not going to outline all these incidents. So many government departments are relying on contract staff to solve the staff shortage. So the NCSC system has been abused, resulting in equal work but not equal pay. And the government has not been a very good employer in this sense. So we are urging the government to take a very good look at the issue, and that the NCSC system must not be abused anymore. Now, on retirement age extension, this is part of the population policy of Hong Kong, and has an impact on our financial expenses as well as the incumbent and future recruits, as well as affecting staff performance and their career prospects. Now, on a personal basis, they have to consider their family situation, personal health, promotion prospects, and so on. So this is a controversial issue, all in all, and it's difficult to come to a consensus. But we have to have a win-win-win situation. That's society, government, as well as the individual. Now, we need to have flexibility. That's number one. And you have to face a situation where they cannot get their retirement benefits immediately upon retirement. And the succession need is also important, and the maintenance of the service standard and the impact on society has to be considered. So this has to be done in phases. And the final criterion is that when creating policy and implementing it, you have to fully consult the various government departments and unions so that everybody affected will be benefited. Thank you. We now have the AGTSO working group for the TOA in the housing department. And with us today is Mr. Lau. Now, I have the following supplement. According to our Annex 3, and in April 2001, our AGTSO, we had 164 people looking at all of the housing estates in Hong Kong. And This includes our independent survey group, development group, and there are also a team responsible. They are technical officers, and they have about 100 only. And the department approved under the development section to hire 85 contract assistants. So this 1-to-1 ratio is based on this figure. Now I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the contract assistants, they have to include the calculation of reasonable profits. And my understanding is that those in the housing department, we are seconded to the HA, and their salary would be reimbursed to the government by the HA. Another figure is that in 2011, the HD has to be responsible for 15,000 units, and we have a 7-year building cycle. And the department has now shortened the cycle to 5 years, and the construction period remains the same. In other words, those drafting of the plans and so on is shortened correspondingly, resulting in a lot of stress for us. And with 5,000 HOS scheme and 5,000 PRH, so this is from 15,000 to 25,000, an increase of 30%. We have a creation of posts of a chief architect, and there are 12 architects in the team, and only 12 technical officers are approved. In other words, 1 general and 1 soldier, 1-to-1. And we have to second 6 contract assistants to help to start the team. And in our peak period for the construction of HOS flats, we had an increase of up to 30 people. So if you look ahead at our workload, and the contract staff has not been reported, so they are not included in the formula. So if our staff's pay is to be reimbursed by the HA, then that factor has to be taken into account. Now, on the retirement age, we should allow the existing, the incumbents to have a choice. Okay, thank you very much. We now have the Hong Kong Fire Services Department Ambulance Men's Union.
In the past 20 years, the FSD engaged many consultants to look at assessment of demand and resource complements. The consultants understood that with aging population and development of tourism as well as air pollution, there will be more demand on our services. Therefore, the consultant has said that there will be a 3 to 5% increase in service demand. The consultant was very accurate, but then it makes no difference to us because the FSD has not looked at this in the last 15 years, from 1987 to 2012. There has been an increase of our work demand by 1.2 times, but then manpower has increased only by 43%. We also have a lagging behind in terms of calculating supply of manpower vis-a-vis demand. And also because we need to undergo training, every day there is the situation where 20% of the people are taken off service. And now the performance pledge of 10 minutes for response to a call has been there for many years, and yet it has not been improved. And it is said that there should be the reduction from 2 minutes to 1 minute in terms of sending out fire engines, but then this has not been acceded to. And as you know, civil servants, you all have 1 hour meal break, but only 2,600 ambulancemen have to work 12 hours and yet we only have a meal break of 30 minutes. That goes to show that why we have such a big manpower problem. Say if there is a big traffic accident, in fact most of the ambulances are not from FSD, they are from AMS and from St. John's. And that goes to show that our resources just cannot tackle emergency incidents of a large scale. And this has a direct impact on the 7 million people in Hong Kong and the millions of tourists coming to Hong Kong, as well as ourselves, the ambulance men. This is what the FSD has done. On the 20th of January, we will mobilize our off-duty ambulance men to state a protest here at LegCo. As for retirement age, we have a different view. In fact, this is a very demanding job. We don't want to have our age of retirement extended. In fact, we want to advance it. We hope we will still be alive when we come to our retirement age. We don't want to work till death. Thank you, Mr. Watt. Next, Government Employees Association, Mr. Cheung Wai Kun, Rights Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. On behalf of the Government Employees Association, I'd like to say that we have an open mind, and also we have some reservations, because by so doing, you can only provide short-term relief to the manpower situation. And if this is done, there are many factors that should be considered first. If this is implemented, our association would like to make the following proposals. Number one, between 60 and 65, incumbent civil servants should be able to say when they want to retire. This must not be made compulsory. Second, if indeed people retire, they should be able to receive pension in a lump sum, and then they should be re-employed by signing a contract, but at the same time they should still be able to get pension payment while they are re-employed. Now that we have a wastage problem and there is succession gap, I think this is all the work of the Civil Service Bureau. We used to have 200,000 civil servants, but now we only have 160,000. However, the public place demand on us so that they have higher and higher expectations of civil servants. However, when we have a lack of manpower, we have been working so hard in the last 10 years. Let us not mention extending the retirement age. Even now, even if we stick to the present retirement age, the peak will mean that there will be 5,000 to 6,000 retiring every year. And there are people who advance their retirement age because they work too hard. They want to lead a more comfortable life while they can get pension payment already. And to resolve the problem, the most important thing is the administration must re-employ appropriately experienced and qualified civil servants. You must review the number of frontline posts to see whether they are meeting demand. And at the same time, for MPF civil servants, they do not have all the benefits of pensionable civil servants. They are very well qualified, and yet they don't have so much benefit. They work under more pressure. And 10 years, 20 years down the road, when you need this batch of civil servants help you deliver your work, and the market also needs them, well, these are exactly the civil servants who will abandon ship. In other words, there will be a second wave of resignations. So by that time, do you want to propose an extension to 70 years? The two must be linked. You can review the retirement age, but then the most important issue is a lack of manpower in the civil servants. You don't want to admit it, but the fact remains that you should not limit the establishment of departments anymore, but give more funding to civil servants. Thank you, Mr. Cheung. Mod 1 Staff Consultative Council Staff Side, Ms. Lee Wai-yi, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Mod 1 staff generally support the extension of the retirement age. now we have a longer life expectancy on average, and when we reach 60 years, we are still very fit physically and we still have very good work ability. In last December, we held a seminar and many participants said that they would like to still stay in work at 60 years of age. Mod 1 staff have low salaries because we are at the bottom of the MPS. And even if we are pensionable, we cannot support ourselves with the pension payment. Let me give you an example. There was one who has worked for 20 years. He is a workman too. Upon retirement, he got a lump sum payment of 220,000, and the monthly pension payment was $3,000. He has to pay rent, he has to pay for other expenses, and he lives in a public housing unit. He pays $2,100 in rent, and he only has $900 from the pension payment. So how can he support himself? And after retirement, the pension lump sum has also been exhausted. So Mod 1 staff who are about to retire always worry, and they worry about their post-retirement life. So most of us would like to stay in employment after 60. Many of us have retired already, and yet they need to look for another job. So I like to ask the chairman and members, how can you allow Mod 1 staff to have a comfortable retirement? We can't even support ourselves. So we thank this opportunity of coming to talk to you so you know the situation we face. So members and the CSB would know that this is the situation we face. In fact, there was a new employment system for civil servants. So we hope you can revive the old practice. So civil servants have more freedom in choosing their retirement age, and we hope that the Bureau and the staff side can continue to have an exchange of views. Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next, DAB, Ms. Chung Fan Lan, Deputy Spokesperson of Public Service. Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, other deputations. Today we are talking about the retirement age of civil servants. At present, if you joined the civil service before 1987, your retirement age is 55, and after that, the retirement age is 60, and for disciplined services, 55 or 57. Given present medical services, which are at a high standard, people now live longer. We believe, therefore, there is the possibility of extending the retirement age. According to 2011 figures, life expectancy is such that for both men and women, we live the longest. For men, 80.5 years, and women, 86.7 years. By 2041, women would live until 90 and men 84. So I think people are still fit enough to stay in employment after 60. Just now, frontliners have said the same thing. And we are talking about giving a choice to civil servants so they can make a decision basing on what they want to do and their physical conditions. According to a CSB paper last June, between 2017 to 2022, that will be the peak of civil service retirement, and as many as 7,000 people will retire every year. Therefore, we have to tackle this problem now. Many civil servants were engaged in the 80s, and now they are past the age of 50. And 70% of directorate officers will be retiring in the short term. That's why we agree that the retirement age of civil servants can be extended. And we can implement this by phases. Discipline services, they have a lower retirement age. Maybe we can extend that as a first step, and then this can be applied to different grades in phases. The private market always takes the government's position for reference. So if the government takes the lead, the society will follow. Thank you, Ms. Zhang. Next, Hong Kong Senior Government Officers Association, Mr. Chen Sai-Kwing, Chairman. Chairman, members, CSB colleagues, and other colleagues. The view of the Hong Kong Senior Government Officers Association is that we should consider extending it. And it should be between 55 to 65, and there should also be flexibility. Some of our members said that they might have their own personal decisions, they might have considerations about health and family, and they might want still to retire at 55. We will have a peak of retirement very soon. 7,000 will retire every year, and in 10 years, 40% of incumbent civil servants will leave their posts. But the Hong Kong government cannot retire, so we need to do something. As Hong Kong citizens, we are concerned about succession of civil servants. Before 2007, for various reasons, there was a freeze on civil servants' recruitment. Now you can see the consequence of that measure. This is affecting every grade and every rank of the civil service.
Our hope rests in the future. We have to train the next generation who are capable and who can take up the work. Now, on retirement age, we have two goals. Number one, to relieve the shortage of manpower, as mentioned by many of us. Secondly, how the 20, 30 years of experience can be passed on to the next generation so that our high performance can be maintained. Now we have to keep training. Obviously, the Civil Service Bureau has been doing that. And then many of us have talked about manpower, and because of the training and because of the need, we must have some support. Now I hope the CSB will pay attention to this on a ratio of 1.1 or 1.2 in our establishment. Now, to extend the retirement, there must be a goal. The performance must be maintained, and then it will not affect the promotion prospect of future civil servants, and the expertise should be passed on to the existing staff, and there should not be a drop in the number of recruits, and that also explains my point on training. Thank you. we now have the Government Flying Service Aircraft Technicians Union. Thank you. Now we account for about 90% of the people, and from 2000 onwards, our technicians has been trimmed, resulting in the senior staff shortage, and also a lack of upward mobility for our lower rank staff. Now, the work has been dished out among the lower ranked staff, and of course we've been asked to do more with less, and our staff are getting older, and our flying trips have increased, and people are expecting more from us. And yet we remain very labor intensive. Now our aircraft technicians have to do preparation work beforehand and also maintenance afterwards, but with our existing number of staff, it's very difficult to keep up with public demand. Now through natural wastage, we have lost experienced staff, which cannot be replaced in a short while. Now, you have the same number of bodies, but the experienced staff have gone, and the work has become more demanding as a result. Now, on retirement age extension, now we have asked our staff, and 70% welcome this, but because CSB is still working on the proposal, we only have some very simple suggestion. Number one, to increase the number of staff, to create incentive so that our colleagues can choose to extend their retirement on a flexible basis, and then we should increase the trial method of the arrangement of extending it by 90 days. Now we now have the Government Educational Staff Union, Mr. Cheung. Now our members include the teachers in government-funded secondary and primary schools. Now on the retirement age and manpower, we have the following views. First of all, on the establishment of our members, we discover that there is a discrepancy in the recruitment condition, and really it should be all on a long-term basis, and this will decrease the problem of low morality. Now, at the moment, all our teachers, with very few exceptions, are graduate teachers. But the Bureau should turn all teaching posts into graduate posts with better remuneration. The teachers' qualifications are being ignored, so we are asking for graduate treatment for all our teachers. Now, I'm not going to respond or to repeat what has been said earlier. Now, on retirement age, now a shortage of manpower is what we are facing, but lengthening the retirement age only lengthens the pain. It's not really helping. Instead, the government should, responding to individual ranks, do investigation and pick certain professions for extending the retirement age on a trial basis, rather than doing it across the board. Now, it is important to reduce the service asked of us and to increase our manpower. Now, for the education sector, we have not received complaints of shortage of people, but rather there are shortage of places. Now, we also understand that civil servant teachers have a responsibility towards society. Okay, we are not having difficulty in recruiting, but the effect on the students has to be taken into account. Those over 60 can be given the choice to stay on if they wanted to. Now, this can allow both subsidized schools and government-funded schools to have the same arrangement regarding teachers' retirement, and this should be implemented ASAP. Now, that's all from me. Now, thank you, Mr. Cheung. Now, we have heard from all the deputations today, and I declare an adjournment of 3 minutes. Thank you.